Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Sharon, you were wonderful. Sharon, you are wonderful. I apologize. It's all because of me. I have in 7 minutes a conversation with Secretary of State John Kerry, and it's an important conversation. So we kvetched everything, you know. But sometimes, you know, when you're bereft of time, you get to the main points, and I think Speaker Yuli Edelstein just hit the nail on the head. He and Natan Sharansky who are here. I sort of view them as my protégés because they were ministers in my government, but they fought for the Jewish people and for Jewish identity and for Jewish freedom well before that. And they continue to do so today, and I salute both of you. As I do my many friends who are here, I went into a more detailed presentation yesterday. You may have heard it. Just press repeat. If we had time, I would repeat it. But I don't have time now, so I want to get to the main point. Look at what's behind me. You see this magnificent mural of Chagall, and you see Abraham over there? That's the blue figure with Isaac. Then this big fellow here, you know him? You know him? Yeah. Moshe. And that's King David. This is our beginnings, almost 4,000 years ago. And shortly thereafter, the tremendous contribution of Moses to human thought, and especially human morality, which was unheard of in those days of mass slave empires. There were no laws, really. I mean, there was no moral code. This was such a revolution, it just went like a lightning bolt through the nations and through history. It's a particular code for us, but it's a universal code that we gave mankind, and without it, there would be no morality in the world. But we also have the needs of our own survival, and King David epitomizes the idea of Jewish sovereignty and our capacity to take charge of our own destinies in our own land. So we had a tremendous history. And while not all the nations and not all the leaders know its details in this ahistorical age, I always say that in the age of modernity and the spread of the internet, there's a paradox, because you're lucky if people's historical memory goes back to breakfast. But ours goes back. And yet I met today 20 young Chinese entrepreneurs, men and women. They came for a week to study here. We met in the Knesset, and they asked me a question. And the question they asked me was, there wasn't time there either, so one question really. What is your role as the Prime Minister of Israel? What is your main role? So I could have responded, what do you think is my main role? That's in our Talmudic traditions. But I fell back in a flash of recognition on my first visit to China, my first term as Prime Minister, and I met the leader of China then, Jiang Zemin, And I described to them the conversation I had with Benjamin. He said to me, I admire the Jewish people. So I said, I admire the Chinese people. He said, you know, the Jews and the Chinese are the two of the most ancient peoples on earth. We go back 5,000 years, you go back 4,000 years. I said, that's true. And I said, there's a lot in common, but there's one small difference. He said, what is the difference? I said, how many Chinese are there? He said, oh, about 1.2 billion. I said, well, how many Jews are there in the world? He didn't know. I said, 12 million. There was a gasp in the room. This is a suburb of Beijing. And I said to the leader of China, you know, that's odd. Because at the time of the Roman Empire, the Jews constituted 10% of the population of that great empire. So by just extrapolation and natural growth, we should have, well, we wouldn't have 1.2 billion, but we'd have about 250 million Jews today. He said, what happened? And I said, this is verbatim, I said, a lot of things happened. But they boiled down to one main thing. We Jews had a great history, for sure. But 2 millennia ago, we began to lose the grip on our land. You, the Chinese, had China. You had diasporas, but you always had China. We lost our land. And we were dispersed to the four corners of the earth with tremendous calamities that befell us. Massacre, pogrom, assimilation, loss of identity, loss of life, on a scale that grew with century by century until it exploded into the worst horrors of the previous century. And I said to him that for the last 2 millennia, we've had one purpose, to come back and rebuild our national life in our ancestral homeland. This was our purpose, and Jews throughout the world said, for centuries, year after year, next year in Jerusalem, next year in Jerusalem. And it fell to my parents' generation to succeed in retrieving for the Jewish people what was lost. And it falls on my generation, and it falls on the Prime Minister of Israel, to secure what has been retrieved. That is my central job, to protect and secure the one and only Jewish state. And on this, we make no compromises. That's my job. That's your job too. You wouldn't be here on this mission if you didn't believe it's your job. That has changed your life. You're directing your efforts, your passion, your devotion, your dedication to this goal. It is something that infuses tremendous import into our lives, because we know that almost 4,000 years ago, not very far here, less than a mile from here, Abraham stood on that rock, and David played his harp here in this city. This is our land, this is our patrimony, this is a history of a people like no other. We've overcome the greatest travails in history. We have triumphed, and look at what we have produced and what we are producing. Look at what we will continue to contribute to our people and to the world. But we have to preserve the lifeline. And the lifeline is the one and and only Jewish state. Cherish it, work for it, above all, protect it. Thank you very much.